All right, let's get into it. So,
Yes.
so this is episode 7 of the Money Musician podcast, and
Yeah.
I got my buddy here. Uh, he's a full-time musician. He's been doing it for decades now. Um,
Mm.
he's played thousands of shows, traveled the world playing music. Also, an original artist. This is
Mm.
Daniel Park.
Hello, money musician, Miles. It's really cool. We were just talking. I'm so glad that you have put the time and effort into this. It's really great to see this focus of like helping other artists, seeing how other artists have come, and where they came from and how they got to where they are now.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I'm excited to hear your story too because I know you have like a crazy journey and you've all helped us out in gigging
Mm.
and you've been doing it the longest I think out of anyone that I know. So
Mm.
uh yeah, so let's kind of dive into it. Let's dive in.
Right.
So what's like kind of give us like a quick timeline of like how you got into music just in the beginning, like maybe your first instruments that you started playing up until like your first open mic.
Yeah. Okay. So I started violin. Actually, all the kids in my family played violin. I started when I was 5, had private violin lessons, would do orchestra. I did middle school orchestra. I did high school orchestra, like school orchestras, and then also like after school orchestras. Like so much orchestra. Like we even in the car we're driving around, we just listen to classical music. Like there's just lots of orchestra. So I grew up in that kind of
Hmm.
environment. Yeah, lots of just every day I'd wake up maybe 5:30 to practice the violin for an hour before school. Before I'd eat breakfast, before I got ready, I'd just like wake up, you know, brush my teeth maybe, and then go practice the violin for an hour, and then eat breakfast, and then go to school. So that was like majority of my like upbringing was lots of violin.
Dang, so that
um,
that practice routine really like was ingrained from like a young age.
yeah. So when you're younger, you don't really get a choice. You're just like, oh, this is what I do. I wake up and do it. You don't really question it. And then I guess I didn't
Right.
really start realizing like, wait, is this really what I want to do until high school? And then I picked up guitar. My mom bought me $100 guitar, and she dropped me off at Lutheran Bible Camp in Iowa,
Hmm.
and and picked up $100 guitar at some random guitar shop along the way. And so I learned that summer. I learned like all the chords for the guitar, and would play around the campfire, and I'd like follow the other like worship leader or whatever. And then by the time I came back that summer, I could play like all the songs. It felt really super easy. So yeah, I really started falling in love with the guitar. And so like throughout my remainder years of high school, I'd be jamming guitar a lot. And then when I went to college is when I started playing in a bunch of bands, and
Hmm.
started playing like college bars with a bunch of bands. And I usually ended up playing violin. So a lot of these, I went to school at New Mexico State University, and so like there's a lot of country kind of esque music, like '90s rock or country music. So the fiddle or the violin would fit in really well with a lot of these with a lot of the songs.
Yeah,
So it just
that's
really fit
perfect.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really
That's
cool.
what they
So
needed.
yeah, they're like, "Hell yeah, we need some fiddle." So like, yeah, it was really fun. I had a really fun time playing in these bands, and yeah, I eventually realized that like bands are kind of fickle. Like um,
Hmm.
one of the bands was like, "Oh, we're having so much fun," but then eventually one of the guys was graduating. He was like, I'm moving away to the East Coast." So I was like, "Well, do we keep on doing this, or do we need to find more members, or like do we just disband?" So I think we just disbanded because it was like one of the other guys was like, "Well, I think I'm gonna quit. I'm gonna move next year." And it's just like this whole thing. It's just like never ending. So I,
Yeah,
yeah, right. And then if you find a new
yeah.
member, and then I joined like a screamo kind of band when like kind of this like new age like punk rock was kind of popular a
Hmm.
few years back. And so just to stay in the kind of a creative zone, like we wrote a lot of songs and it was really fun. I also played violin in this like screamo rock band, and that was really fun. But also there's just a lot of issues with like band members. So that like these things made me real, and plus like both of these bands I wasn't making any money really. So it was like this more it was more like a, oh, this is fun. Um,
Right.
we might make a little bit of money at the door, but it would always go back into the band, or like the band needed something. Like we need a new microphone for the singer, or we need some cables because this, like we trash these cables or things like that. So
Yeah.
like the minimal amount of money we were making was just going back into the bands. So like I never really thought of like bands as a sustainable um like living, as
Hmm.
far as as being a musician. But during this time, I was starting to work on um, my own show in a sense. It wasn't really that I wanted to, but I was getting kind of tired of the band dynamics of like relying on other people. I was like, you know what? I really want to just start singing and doing my own stuff also on the side. So I started going to open mics. There was an open mic in this town on Tuesdays, I remember. And so I challenged myself to learn a new song, memorize the music and the lyrics every week, so to have a new song to present every week. And so that was kind of the start of my
Nice.
my career. Yeah. And
Yeah,
then
that's what I tell
eventually,
that's what I
yeah.
tell a lot of the people that are following is like learn like 1 to 2 songs a week because
Yeah.
that's 52 songs in a year, or that's
Yeah.
104 songs in a year. If you
Yeah.
learn two a week, that's a 3 hour set. That's a long set.
Yeah, 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 easy. And then and once it just becomes like a habit, it just becomes easier and easier. So now it's like I don't even have to think about like learning. I can learn, as soon as I'm thinking about, oh, I should learn this song, and just listen to it a few times. I'm like, oh, okay, it's easy. I can do it, and then
Yeah.
learn it within an hour or something like that. Yeah,
Yeah, you just like hone that
yeah,
skill of just like learning it.
uh,
Is it
yeah.
so you Oh yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, yeah. It's just all repetition, really. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, you
memorization.
just
You
get
got
so quick at it. And
Yeah.
it's so these open mics, these were in New Mexico, right?
New Mexico. So yeah, yeah. Um,
Do you
I,
remember your first open mic that you did?
no, not my first one. I think I probably went. I do remember this one time. I tried to go to an open mic with some friends, and it was before I was 21. So it was like they wouldn't let me in. So like, well, I kind of went in, but they're like, oh no, you can't stay because you're not 21. So it was like this
Uh,
realization that like, oh wait, a lot of these places, if it's a bar, like it's not really catered to like an all ages group. Yeah. So later
mm,
on when I started open mics, I did find a more of a restaurant setting where like families could come. So I could
yeah.
run an open mic that was all ages. Yeah. But
Well,
anyways,
nice. Yeah,
that's a little side note. Yeah.
that's cool. And so what was it like playing those open mics, and what did you have to kind of go through?
Yeah, so definitely something I realized, was open mics, there's kind of a community aspect to it. And so, like, you start meeting people, you meet other musicians, and so that's kind of the fun part about it. You start talking to other people that are, like, coming every week, and they become familiar faces, and then you're going there every week. But something else I noticed is a lot of the same people that were very stagnant, they would just sing the same 2 songs every week because that's where they were comfortable. And so,
Mm,
like,
Yeah.
even after a year, it'd be like, "Oh, I know what they're gonna sing the same 2 songs." Yeah.
Just no progression.
Yeah, 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 and so that's what I realized is, like, it's like you have to put just some sort of, like, effort, and, if you put a deadline, like, "Oh, I gotta sing this song, I gotta make sure this song is ready by Tuesday," you know? And
Mhm.
then during the week, yeah, so that was a big realization. It was like, "Wait, I don't wanna be I don't wanna be that guy that's just singing the same 2 songs every week." Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's totally and that's and I mean, yeah, especially when you're in like starting out in the beginning, you wanna do well. And so I could see why people
Yeah.
just sing the same stuff and they just wanna do a good job and then kinda get that, that dopamine spike or something from the open mic because that's
Yeah.
kinda what it gives you in the beginning. But then, yeah, so you started how long did you play the open mics before you felt ready to play a gig?
Um, I think okay, it was probably at least a year before I actually got, like, a real paying gig. I know I got, um there's this one cafe I remember I played, and the pay was $30 and a free sandwich.
Solid.
Yeah, I know. The free sandwiches are always a good enticer too, um but yeah, I eventually, one night there was this, at that Tuesday open mic that I went to, um, there was this guy kind of in a suit that was drinking a beer at the bar. I noticed him, and then I after I sang my set, he came up to me and was like, "Hey, I'm the manager of this restaurant across the street. Um, would you like to play? I really liked your set. Would you like to play every Thursday at our restaurant?" And so I was like, "Oh shit!" So that was kind of the beginning of my paid gig restaurant bar kind of stint. So from there, I remember it was $50 an hour. So I play 3 hours, like 6 to 9 for kind of like a dinner set, and
Mm,
plus tips. So like it would be probably make around 250 dollars a night. Um, and I
nice,
was
yeah.
like, "This is nice, wow!" Because after I graduated college, I got my engineering degree. I got a job right away as a beginning engineer. Starting engineer was like salary was like 45, I think, $45,000 a year. And
Mhm,
so after taxes, I remember my take home pay was like $500 a week, something like that. So
mm,
$2,000 a month or something like that. It wasn't, it was like, wow, this is great money back then. But like once I started getting that first gig, and then from there I was able to get more gigs. Especially there's another town close by, El Paso, and so from there I was getting gigs on from that Thursday I was getting gigs on Friday, Saturday. Um, Sometimes I get gigs on Tuesdays, Wednesdays in El Paso. So it's just like I was exceeding my 40-hour, my engineering job, which I, went to school 5 years for to do whatever that, and I
mm,
was making that doing way less work and something I enjoyed more by
right, yeah.
playing these restaurant and bar gigs. Yeah.
And so you kinda added it up, you're like, "Huh, I can make as much money doing this."
Yeah, and I was like, "Oh, yeah." Eventually, it was just like this realization. I was like, "Oh, because it got to a point where I was like, you kind of stay up late, right? You're like, especially when I had the drive, like El Paso was like maybe a 45-minute drive or an hour to the gig from where I
Mhm,
was. So there's that. It's an hour there, set up, and then you play your 3 hour gig, and then you have to drive back, and then I'd stop and get some food maybe on the way home. So it's like I get back home at like 3 a.m. and then I had to wake up by 7 to be at work at 8, the next
dang,
day.
yeah,
So like doing that for like a year or so, maybe a little bit longer, like both things were suffering. Like just wasn't like my uh my job. I was so tired at work, and then After work, but then I'd be like pumped up to go and perform, be like, oh
Right,
yeah,
right.
time to go perform. But then, yeah, the next day I'd be like, oh, I'm so tired. But so eventually I had to make that I was like, I have to give myself an ultimatum. I was like, okay, I think what I need to do is just I need to go for it. Like I'm getting enough gigs now where I can pay all my bills. I'm getting paid more per hour. I looked at my hourlies. I was like, okay, well, so if I'm working 40 hours a week at my engineering job, I'm working
Hmm.
like way less and making more per hour. So it just makes more sense.
Right.
So yeah, January 1st, 2010, I just planned it that way, was my cutoff. So I switched from becoming a full-time engineer to a full-time musician, January 1st, 2010. Yeah.
That's so cool
Uh,
because that's
yeah.
such a pivotal moment, you know. That's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah. I was like, new year and a new me. I was like, okay, yeah.
yeah. I remember making that decision too. Yeah, at some point you're like, man, I would have a lot more time
Yeah.
and I would be making more money. It's just more efficient to do gigging because then you know you're only gigging like 3 or 4 days out of the week, and you get 3 days off, and then you
Yep.
compare that to a 40-hour work week, and you're like, this is an obvious decision, and you're probably more passionate about music, you know.
Yeah.
Uh,
But it's also you have to deal with the boss. You gotta like deal yeah. It's just yeah, you're just when you become responsible for yourself, it's like, oh shit. Like it's on me to show up on, I want to show up on time. I want to show my best. Well, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I want to show my best side. I want to show that I can do this and care about it and be good. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess that's the other, kinda switch that you make is working for someone and then just going to be self-employed. That's a big jump because it's all on you. You know,
Yeah.
it's
Mhm.
no one's gonna tell you what to do, no one's pushing you, it's like you have to do all of that yourself.
Yeah, I think that's an important distinction when you switch from a different job to doing that. You have a lot more time, but it's like how you spend that time is important also. It's like creating good habits and then also thinking about um, what your performance, like everything that's entailed in being a performing musician as being a professional instead of just like, oh, this is something fun. This is something cool that I do, and like it doesn't matter. It's just like a little thing that I do, and I could show up like an hour late or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
It doesn't really
Yeah.
matter. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really I feel like that is, and you kinda see both too, like, we all know a lot of musicians, and you kinda see both sides of it where, like I mean, even for me personally, I've been on both sides where there's some gigs where I've been very professional, and then some gigs where I really wasn't, and I could have stepped up my game, and you kinda see both, and you're like, "Okay, being professional is important."
Yeah.
So when did looping come into it? Did you start looping in the beginning, or were you just singing and playing guitar?
No. So yeah, that's a good question. So I didn't realize looping existed until I mean, I was in college when I first saw it. But I only saw it on a DVD. So there's this guy called Howie Day. Do you know let's see. He has a song called You and I Collide. Do 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 do
Oh,
do
yeah, I
do.
think yeah.
That's Howie Day. That's probably his most popular song, his famous song. But a friend he had this EP. A friend had his it was like a CD and a DVD combo, like kind of see. So he had this live performance
Oh, okay, yeah.
DVD that he let me borrow, and it was him doing this looping performance. And so after watching that DVD, I was like, "Oh, this is really cool." Because kind of this light bulb went off over my head. Because back then I was doing what everybody was. I was just playing acoustic guitar and singing at my gigs, and then And because I also play violin, I was like, this is how I can incorporate guitar and violin together. So that's how I got into
Mm,
looping. I was like, I'm gonna take this. So I got the same exact looping pedal that Howie Day had in the video. It's a Line 6 DL4. It's technically a delay pedal. It's not.
mm.
It just had one of the settings was like looper. And so, yeah, it was like the most basic looper, you could get in the yeah, and so I started, just experimenting, yeah, with looping guitar and then just jamming violin on top of that in my shows, and it worked out for a while, except that pedal is very fickle. Like, I remember, um times at shows where I'm like, it just stopped working. It'd just be like,
Oh,
uh,
geez.
yeah, just like flashing lights or whatever. And so I'd have to I remember over the course of a few years, I had to buy like 5 or 6 of them. And so like yeah, they're terrible.
And
Yeah.
that was, did you, so you didn't see anyone else loop like that? Like you didn't
No,
see anyone else like loop guitar and violin. Like that was like, so you just saw him looping acoustic guitar in the video. And then you
yeah.
totally had that idea of doing your own thing.
Yeah, he was also looping his vocals, so it was like he was like hitting his guitar to make like drum beats, and then like recording that, and then like using a octave pedal for like bass sounds. And so like I kind of emulated those things, but then
Yeah.
added violin on top. Yeah.
That's cool. So you kind of pioneered that then. Like you're like
Definitely
that
in my
combination.
area. Definitely in my area, I was the first one to do that. Yeah, nobody else was doing anything like that. Yeah.
Honestly, I haven't seen anyone do that.
Mm,
As long as I've been gigging in Vegas and everywhere else, I've never seen anyone else do what you do.
mm.
Like, I've seen people just play violin and loop violin, like over maybe they'll like do the chords on violin and then play the melody or something on top. But I've never seen anyone do what you do. I don't know if
Mm.
you have, but
No, not really. I think that's the really cool part about, looping is it's like it becomes kind of like another, um, I don't wanna say instrument in a way, but a process for how, like, you present your performance. I think that's, and everybody loops differently, and um, I think that's what's interesting. Everybody thinks about it differently.
yeah,
Yeah.
like you can give the same looper to like five musicians and they're all just going to use it in a
Yeah,
different
they'll move
way.
it differently.
Yeah, that's cool to think about. Yeah, it is kind of like an extension of the instrument because it's like the arranging instrument.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like live in yeah, how you like what instrument, I usually end up usually laying my drum part first, but like some people will do their guitar part first, or some people, you know what I mean? It really just depends. So there's a
Yeah.
process to how it's all put together, I think.
Yeah, and you have some really cool arrangements too.
Mm,
Like some really kind of elaborate arrangements to where I think when people first start looping, it'll be very basic, just like they'll loop a beat, maybe the chords, just keeping it super basic. But I don't know, that's one thing that I really liked about you watching you was that you did very elaborate, like you would loop stuff throughout the song and then you
mm,
would make this huge ending and it would be massive and it was just it was almost like listening to a song
mm.
when I would watch you. It was like a typical song when you listen to it, it has a lot of dynamics, stuff is coming in and out, there's climax in some parts and it's like I think you do that really well.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I think there's something to be said about like a song, like an interesting song does need dynamics. So like yeah, I'm I'm definitely doing a lot when I'm performing. I'm not doing one thing at a time. I'm like singing and then recording bass while I'm singing, and then recording the violin, doing the solo, and then recording, doing multiple violins, and then there's always a like doing kind of patting the head and rubbing the belly constantly, yeah, with
Yeah.
looping, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, really is kind of a you have to create that skill of um, knowing how to use. That's how I think of it. Is like looping is because you have to use another limb. I mean,
Mhm.
it's part of this whole like playing guitar and singing. Using two hands and your mouth is enough stress for your brain, for a lot of people. But then adding, okay, now I got to push a button at the right time along
Right.
with all this stuff, you know, it just becomes even more difficult. So yeah,
Yeah. That's really yeah, I feel like most people don't think about that because from the audience perspective, it looks like someone's just up there singing and playing guitar and all this sound is coming out. But then
mm,
you kinda zoom into the mind of the looper, and it's like you're thinking about the lyrics, you're thinking about the timing of the loops coming in, you're thinking of which parts are next, you're thinking of playing all the parts in time. You're thinking, it's you're thinking that people are trying to talk to you. There's
yeah,
all this extra stimuli in the venue and stuff. It's like there's so much going on just for one song, it's crazy.
yeah. I think that's
Yeah.
I think that's what I think most normal people that are just listening don't realize what's happening is it's like the intensity of mental um
Focus.
focus, yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
is if you're a looper, it just takes a lot of mental power kind of to, like, do all that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Control
and
everything,
maybe
memorize
that's kind
lyrics.
of like the oh, sorry, go ahead, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, no, no, yeah, go ahead.
I was saying, yeah, like that's a great point because that's kind of how it feels like when you play for 3 hours or 4 hours, it really puts you in the moment. Because you can't really think about anything else and still do all of that properly, you know?
Yeah, really
Yeah.
have to concentrate, yeah, it's a concentration.
Yeah, that's a cool way to think about it. So, okay, so you quit your job, you started playing
Yeah,
full
yeah, yeah.
time. Let's go from there. So you were in
Mm.
and you started playing you were in New Mexico playing gigs, and then you started playing in El Paso, and then did you start playing, like, around there?
Yeah, so, 2010, January 2010, when I quit my job, now I had more time, so this is my kind of, I would say my permanent touring phase, so, uh, I got a Honda Element, one of those boxy cars, and then stuffed all
Yeah.
my stuff in there, and then I would drive all over the place. I started doing shows in Phoenix, and then I'd go to, like, California, up the coast, Oregon, and Washington, and Idaho, and Utah, and Colorado, and then New Mexico again. I just make this big round. Oh, and Nevada too. That's important later, but, just driving all over the place, finding new gigs, and it was really fun. I had a really fun time. Yeah, so this kind of, like, just driving on the road gave me a lot of time to myself. And that's why I would listen to tons of music and I would be like, this is really where I learned a lot of songs. It was just like driving and singing along to them. And so it was like a really fun discovery phase of not just like music, but like myself also.
Mm. Wow, and then
I read a
how
lot of like audiobooks and stuff too. Yeah.
yeah, just time on the road, that's, like, perfect
Yeah.
time to, like, practice and dive into books and stuff, and, you were did you how did you, like you were playing, like, very similar, like, 3-hour cover gigs in all these states, and
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
were you just, like, reaching out to places, or how did you even make that happen?
Yeah, so this is still back in, like, MySpace, Facebook kind of days. So it was
How
like
old
I
how
could
old were you?
um, shoot, 2010, 14 years ago. Probably like late 20s, 29, something like that, maybe.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, 20s.
Yeah, like late 20s.
Okay, cool.
Um, and so, uh, yeah, was it? Yeah, shoot, yeah, late 20s. And so, yeah. So just traveling around, I would just message people on Facebook or on MySpace or just communicate, try to, there was this feature, I remember this feature on, MySpace where you could find similar artists and see where they're playing. Like they would post where they were playing, but then you
Oh,
could
yeah.
like yeah, and then you could somehow those links would somehow go to like the venue's page or whatever. Then you could like ask, like, oh, I want to get booked there too. So you could find like similar artists that like were kind of like you, and then you could kind of look and see where they were playing in their area, or you could even reach out to them, say like, hey, could I open for you on your next show, or could we do this and play shows together. So yeah, it's just like, again, I think it's just like building community and like meeting people and you know being willing to communicate. I think these days obviously it's like Instagram or TikTok or whatever it is, to do those
Mhm.
things now. But similar, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool, and even just for someone who's never toured or, um, has just never played a gig in, like, out of state, it's kinda nerve-wracking, you know? It's like you're
Mm,
going to you book a spot in some other state, and you might not know anyone in the state, and you might not have ever been to the venue, and you don't know how it's gonna be, you don't know what kinda crowd you're gonna have. There's just a lot of unknowns, and that's pretty cool that you did that, and that in a bunch of different spots, because that's pretty nerve-wracking, I think, for most musicians.
definitely, yeah. I think that's what builds resilience is like you really have to want it. I mean, you're just like, you know what, I'm here for the adventure of it, and like the unknowing part is what's fun, I think, in a sense. Yeah, and that's what gave me a lot of I guess strength to kind of travel a lot more. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, instead of thinking what will go wrong, I'm thinking like I don't know what adventure is going to come out of this, but it's going to be fun. Yeah.
And did that spawn from, um, like, did you play gigs in New Mexico a lot and you were kind of just, like, bored of that? Or and you just wanted to get out?
Yeah, actually that is kind of part of it. It was like I felt like I was playing the same songs to the same people over time,
Mm,
so it's just it's not that it gets boring, it just gets predictable. And so to bring a level of unpredictability, um I mean, for me it's either I have to change myself or I have to change my environment. And so
mm.
um changing the environment was interesting and exciting and fun in a sense. And so, but then also changing myself, meaning it gave me the chance to like be on the road and focus, like doing audiobooks or learning new songs, like while I was on the road. It gave me that time and space to do it, where I felt like where I was, there was a lot of distractions being like, oh, the friends will be calling like, hey, let's go out and do this. Let's go out and drink, or let's go out and do this. Where I had a good excuse to not do those things. I'm like, oh, I'm on the road,
Mm.
you know?
Right,
Mhm.
right. Kinda kept you focused, and you
Yeah.
sounded like it pushed you a lot as well.
Hmm.
Um, that's great, yeah. Change yourself or change your environment, that's great. I really like that, and that's so true, and when you change your environment, it kind of I feel like that's like, it kinda just forces you to adapt and change and grow,
Yeah.
you know, because it's just everything's just new. And yeah, that's so and I feel like you've always been about, traveling and stuff. You've traveled a lot, probably more than anyone I know, and, um, yeah, I feel like there's just so much growth just to traveling, and you were kinda doing both. You were playing shows and traveling, which is which
Yeah.
is which is awesome. And so what happened after that? You did that for a while?
Yeah, I did that for a few years, but I realized traveling a lot I would there was times when I remember this one time um, I played in Seattle one night, and then I realized the next day I needed to play in Pocatello, Idaho. And I was like, "Oh, yeah, it's just the next state over or whatever." And it was like looked at the map, it was like a 12-hour drive or some shit like that. It was like
Oh my
literally 12 yeah, so I had to wake up at like 6 start driving at like 6 AM just so I could get there for like this 7 o'clock show. It was like 12 I only it was like barely enough time. I was so tired. Yeah, but, and then obviously, like, the amount of time and gas that was, I was
mm,
like and what I made, was like, $150 or $200 that night. I was like, I'm I'm not really breaking even. And so I was like, there's gotta be a better way. Um, and around that time, some of my friends back in New Mexico were like, "Hey, we're gonna move to Austin, Texas." And I was like, "Oh, that sounds exciting." They're like, "Yeah, we rent in this big house and like if you want, you can come and join us." And I was like, "Oh," and everybody knows Austin's like a big music city, right? And so I was like,
right.
"Oh, it could be really cool. I could like start getting to know more music people and like South by South, maybe play South by Southwest and all this stuff." So I moved to Austin, Texas, um, but soon realized that um, after moving there that like the gigs weren't the same as this small little town like it's because uh they just didn't pay anything because everybody there was a musician, so they're just uh I realized the economics of the of a town like that is like when everybody's a musician, nobody wants to pay for it. They're just like, oh well, this guy will just do it for pennies, or nothing.
Mm,
So, like, what I
right.
realized was, like, even though you can have a really cool music town, that doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna get paid. And so, this
Mm,
idea of, like, "Oh, you should" I've had friends for years tell me, like, "Oh, you should move to Nashville. You should move to LA. You should move to Austin." I was like, "Well, Austin is the closest place, obviously." And so, like, let's just try that. And so,
yeah, how did you get gigs in the beginning?
I dude, there was this is the first time I experienced this, kinda like pay to play kind of thing. So,
Mm,
there was this gig, I got hit up to do this gig, but they're like, "Oh, you gotta sell 10 tickets," or whatever, and it was like, okay." So, I was like, "Okay, I gotta get my roommates to come," and then I was like, "It just feels weird to, like, get my roommates to come in." So, like, I just paid for everyone's tickets. It was like $100 out of pocket, and it was just like this coffee house kind of gig, and then there was like 10 different artists, and you get like a 30-minute time slot, and I just like and then
okay.
yeah, I was just like, this isn't like what I wanna do at all. And
Right.
so yeah, and so, like, instead of making money or, like, doing doing really fun gigs or just having fun playing music, it just seemed like a chore. I have to sell tickets, I have to do this. It's not like I can't just set up and play songs and have people clap along and sing along. It's like this whole process. And so soon after that, like I only lived there total, I would say like 9 months in Austin. But honestly, I was there way less because I had to start traveling outside of Austin to start
Mm,
getting paying gigs again. So I remember there's some times I'd go to Lubbock, Texas to play some gigs. And that's like a 6-hour drive. So there's
oh,
times where
wow.
I'd go play a gig, and then drive back the same night. So again, like driving 12 hours in one day. And so like I'm just like, this doesn't make sense. And so
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um
that's
yeah, but
wild.
around it, yeah, yeah. It's crazy.
So you're slowly, so you're just slowly figuring out kind of um, process of elimination, kind of what you wanted to do with music. You know, you did the touring thing for a little bit.
Yeah.
Austin wasn't, you weren't really feeling Austin. What happened next?
Yeah. I mean, there's oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And then while I was in Austin one time, I had a friend that was like, "Hey, I'm gonna go try out for America's Got Talent." And I was like,
Mm.
when is that?" He's like, "Oh, it's tomorrow. The tryouts are tomorrow." I was like, "Oh, okay." And so
Sign
I
me
was like,
up.
"Yeah, I'll go, I guess, whatever." But so I had to wake up at like 6 a.m. and like it's at the Austin Convention Center, and I got there, and it was already a line wrapped around the building, like at 6 a.m. to do tryouts. And
Jeez.
so, yeah, so I waited in line. I didn't know where my friend was. It was like we didn't, I think we were in separate groups or something like that. But eventually, I got to audition for a producer. Like what they would do is like kind of once you got into the building, they put you in different groups. So I was in like the male singer category or whatever. And so to do the audition, they'd take 3 of the singers and put them in and then put them in this big room where there was, like, 1 lady at a table and a camera and be like, "Okay, first person, go in the middle of the room and then sing 90 seconds of a song," and then film you, and then it'd be, like, the next person, and then it was me, 90 seconds, and then we'd all leave. She'd be like, "Thank you," and then I got called back, and she's like, "Can you just by myself?" And she's like, "Could you sing another song?" So I sang
Hmm.
another song, and so it was yeah, it was really interesting. I was like, "Oh, okay." So yeah, and then I got the call, like, later that week that I was chosen to go to the live, show or whatever. So, this was season 7 of America's Got Talent. So I became top 100 X that year.
Whoa.
But I wasn't on TV very much, and, I went to the whole, so you know how, American Idol, they send people to LA. So
Hmm.
America's Got Talent, they send the top acts to Las Vegas. And so
Oh, interesting.
I went to Las Vegas. The only time went to Vegas before that, where I did a few shows, but never on the strip. I did like some bars and stuff like outside the strip when I would kind of in my touring days. And then
Hmm.
now this time for America's Got Talent, I got to stay in like I think the Palazzo or something like that, on the
Yeah.
strip. So this whole like I got a hotel room on the strip, and it was like this whole like really cool experience. But I would say overall, like being on a show like that was not a very pleasurable experience.
Really?
They
Oh, wait, you were doing like your looping act on it, right? Or were
No,
you
they
just
wouldn't let
singing?
me. So literally when you're on that show, they're like, "Okay, you have 60 seconds or you got 90 seconds in front of the judge." So
Oh,
there's not enough time to do looping. They don't
right.
let maybe if I got to like uh the live show at the end, I would have been able to do something like that. But what
Mm.
happened was uh the year before, this is what I realized is like they for some reason you already know where the producers are gonna go. You just have this feeling. So like they didn't want to. I could tell they didn't want a singer to win this year because Michael Grimm won the year before.
Oh,
Um,
okay, yeah.
yeah, so it was like a singer won the year before. So I could, and then Howard. This is the first year that Howard Stern was on the show, and so like Stern's gonna shake up the show, and it's just all for ratings, just to like make
Yeah.
it interesting. Not it's and that's what I realized. That's part of the reason why I don't like these shows because it's not really about the talent of the artists. It's really about how can we make this. exciting and like for get more ratings and like we
Yeah,
gotta have these
more views.
backstory we gotta have these backstories on everybody to like make it more compelling and for like the audience to like connect with these people. And it's just like it's not a lot of times it's not real. Like there's just like one I remember there's one like cowboy guy who was like said he was in the army or something like that. He was like a veteran, but like it turned out he wasn't or something like that in the end. I don't know. It was just like
Yeah.
this whole just really stupid like stuff. Yeah.
Dang, that's crazy. I mean, that's cool that you went and did it and like try like went for it. And that led you to Vegas.
Yeah, in a sense it kind of did, but that wasn't really what led me to Vegas. It was I got a call. One of my friends from Phoenix, Adam, he was living in Vegas. I moved to Vegas a few years after I met him, and then he happened to be at the Red Rock Casino, knew somebody there, and was like, "Hey, you gotta check out this guy. He's really good." And then yeah, somehow I got a call one day. It was like, "Hey, we want you to come and try out for this position. We want to see if you want to perform every weekend, Fridays and Saturdays at our venue." So I flew out um, to Vegas. Yeah, in I think it was in December of 2012 or something like that.
Hmm.
Um, and then soon after, I got yeah, they're like, okay, we want you to play at this bar. It was just like this little bar. It's at the Red Rock Casino. It's called Onyx Bar. It was like this super tiny place. It was I can think it could fit like 30 people. Super tiny.
Yeah.
Yeah. But and then I play there Fridays and Saturdays for 6 hours a night. So it was
6 hours.
6 hours a night, yeah.
What were the
And then
breaks like on that? Did you take break?
yeah, I'm not very good at breaks. I would do I'd play 3-hour set and then I'd take a break and then do
Just
another
whatever's left.
yeah, do whatever's left.
Dude,
Yeah,
that's a long gig, man.
yeah. But, but this was
Wow.
what was great about it is I got paid $700 a night plus tips. So I would easily make like $1,000 a night, something like that, around
Yeah.
900 to 1,000, yeah. And so what happened, it
Great.
made me realize is like, wait, I could just live, and that was 2 nights that was 2 nights a week. So it was like I was charging the hotel $1,400 a week. Um, and that was and then tips on top of that. So it was like, holy shit. I was like, I'm doing pretty good. Like this is all I need. Really. I could just work 2 days a week and then and yeah, so then
Yeah.
I got the apartment. I got an apartment, one bedroom apartment, and just started doing that. Started going to like open mics, and again, I just tried to create, build community and find where I fit in. But soon after, it was like I started getting more gig offers. I got the Lily Bar and the Bellagio approached me and wanted me to do a residency, and so. What made the most sense was they're like, "What if we did Tuesdays for you?" And so it was like, "Okay,
Mm,
Tuesdays." And so, yeah, I was able to negotiate, it was, I think, 4 hours a night, and it was like $600, yeah. So
nice.
less yeah, so it's like you can get to a point where, like, you have, there's I realize this, like, if you can bring some sorta skill set that makes you stand out or different, then all of a sudden people are gonna be like, "Oh shit, we want that. We want what you can bring." And so you can charge more for that. Mhm.
Yeah, so you started wow, so there's a lot to unpack here. So did you yeah,
Yeah.
and I love this. This is so good.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you have like a promo video at the time that you were like showing people, or were people coming up
Mm,
people were just like seeing you play?
so there was something else I did during this time. When I was traveling around a lot, I also make, a new YouTube I'd have a new song. I remember back then I was learning a new song every week, for open mic night or whatever.
Mhm.
So while I was traveling and stuff, I would still be learning new songs. But then I was like, okay, I got to showcase this stuff. So every week I put out one new uh, YouTube video of whatever song I was learning that week. And so it just became another thing in my process. I was like, okay, I want to, if I'm singing live at open mic or whatever, um, I gotta kind of do the complimentary thing for that online for whatever I was doing. And so I had tons of videos. I have hundreds of like just cover videos online, and so I was able to
You're
share that.
basically like creating a promo video every day.
Yeah, 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 yeah. At least once a week, I was making a video for many, many years. Yeah. And so
Wow.
that helped me out quite a bit. Yeah, I think there's this, like, idea of, like, creating, like, some sort of checklist of, like, "Okay, what do I need to do this week to, like, further my skill set or, like, showcase what I have learned?" And that, in turn, can give you higher paying, um, gigs, I
And
guess.
then and so you that's kind of what you would do every week. You just make a checklist and like basically
Yeah,
I feel like that's yeah, you it's almost like you have to do that when you're self-employed. Like if you want to keep growing and stuff because it's like no one's going to do it for you and you have to
yeah,
make you have to make your own deadlines and you have to hold yourself
exactly.
accountable, which is really
Mhm.
tough sometimes.
Yeah. So right now I have like a daily there's different ways of doing it. I use this app called Streaks, which kind of helps me kind of stay focused. I could show you so
Yeah.
on my phone. So this is called Streaks. So right now these are like kind of like my daily tasks. Anytime I'm like, okay, um, what do I need to do today? What do I just go directly to this. So like it's like um write in my journal. I think there's like a bit of like reflection. I every morning when I wake up, it's like I wake up, meditate. Um Sometimes I'll do yoga, but this physical activity means go to the gym. It has to be everything has to be done with intention. That's when I can like really check one of these things off. So um reading is very important to me. I think constantly learning is a very important aspect of who I've become. Um, Not just being with the status quo of like how you think things should be. It's like
Mm.
how other minds have thought about different subjects and stuff like that. So I do a lot of reading. And anyways,
So like
get
this
back.
like so this like splits up like every important aspect of your life that you want to
Yeah.
improve.
And you can have different ones. I also have, like, I'm still thinking of, like, other things to add, but, like, you know, um, daily posts, so that's, like, um, something, some just to some post something. I've been more meticulous about that lately. But, yeah, I think journaling, has been really important in my life. Take a selfie is kind of it goes with writing a journal, but I like to I like to have one really easy task. So like taking a selfie takes like 2 seconds, obviously. But then once I start doing one thing, it helps me get into the mode of wanting to complete the rest of these things in a day.
Mm, gives you like some momentum.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Dude, that's awesome. Yeah. And I feel like, man, yeah, to-do lists and checklists and anything that organizes your
Yeah,
thoughts, like there's so much to there's so much to work on. Really, because like
yeah.
not only are you working on like your songs and your looping and your performing and everything like that, but you're working on your health, you're working on your mindset,
Mhm.
working on your relationships. It's a lot to organize, you know.
Yeah, I think it like you said it, I think it's good to think about it in those categories. Okay, what's one thing I can do in the day that helps for my mental health, right? Like so my and then what's one thing that I can do for my physical health? What's one thing that I can do for my um my soul, just like meditation or something like that. Or and then
Mm,
what's one thing that I can do creatively? You know, all these things, and you can also do it in the calendar. So like another this is another thing I learned from YouTuber Ali Abdal. I like his stuff. But then so now I have like time, you know, like so this is like I could put in my morning routine and at a certain time. So you can schedule things. And so like, well, here's
mm.
interview with interview with Miles. And then like later today I have a haircut, and then like, you know, I put it I'm very meticulous about my calendar too, for even for myself. And so
Mhm.
that way I know like the things that I want to get done, especially the things that are important to me. I can schedule them in and go like, I know this is the time I allotted to do this. And so then all of a sudden, over time, these things that you might not think matter, but if you're just 1% better every day, it compounds over time, just like investing
Mhm.
in the stock market or whatever. It just becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And so like um yeah, the meditation, the physical health, the reading, the learning, the all of that stuff compounds into a better version of you. Yeah. And it's
Yeah,
just a
that's
daily
so awesome.
exercise. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Very well said. And it's crazy too because like you think of the time before you did all of that, before it was organized or before any lists were made or anything like that. It's like you're trying to keep all of that in your mind. You're trying to keep track of all the things that you need to improve on, all the things that you need to do, all the times that you need to do them throughout the day. You're trying to keep all of that in your head, and it's just I feel like the more that you can kind of uh what do they call that? Like word vomit or like kind of just get all your thoughts out
Yeah.
and onto something that you can look at and actually see and maybe kind of once you see it you can elaborate on it, you know, like how am I going to get all
Mm.
this done and organize it. And I think that's, man, that's so important, especially when you're self-employed and you have all this stuff going on. It's like it's a
I
lot.
think I think it's good to that's why journaling I think is so important, especially when you're trying to grow, and especially if you're a business person, because then what's cool about the journaling is I can look back and see where I came from and go like there might be, you know, still have like tough days where I'm like, I don't feel like doing anything, and then I can just look back in my journal and go like, okay, this is what it was before, and you're already doing way better than that. So like you,
Right.
there isn't anything to really complain about, you know, you're doing fine, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's tough is like we each individual is like we keep track of like our small progressions every day. But then, you know, if you haven't seen like one of your friends in like a year or something, you see them in a year and they're like, "Oh, wow, you're like a whole different person," because they see your whole they haven't
Yeah.
seen you for a year, you know? And so it's like that's cool to keep track of your progress that way because we kind of I think we kind of forget because we just see the day to day and the small steps, you know?
Yeah. You don't see the change, you know, you don't see the overall changes. You can look at yourself in the mirror every day and go like, "Oh, I look exactly the same." But if you don't look at yourself in the mirror for 10 years, then you're gonna see a big difference. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And even all of this stuff, this might sound like I feel like it might sound like it's getting away from the music thing, but I feel like all of this stuff makes the music so much better.
Yeah.
You know, you're working on your health, you're gonna look better at your gigs.
Mhm.
You're meditating, so your mind's gonna be you're gonna be in a calm state, you're gonna be in a happier state, and that's gonna
Yep.
the audience is gonna pick up on that. So I feel like all of it really adds to and all of that's gonna help you make more money. All of it's gonna you
Yep.
know, you're gonna be healthier, you're gonna be able to sing longer. It's like it's you know, it's just a win-win, I feel like.
Yeah, I think the mental health stuff is important because I know I used to be like this too before I started meditating. Was like there'd be gigs where like people are just talking, they're not listening, and I'd be like, in my mind, I'd be like, "Oh, this sucks. I don't want to be here. This is terrible." Like, and so, but then what we realize is like people. you're there to uplift uplift the container that you're playing in, right? And so
Mm,
if you put that container into this negative energy or negative thoughts, of like this is stupid, I don't want to be here, all this stuff, it's not helping anyone. And so the idea of being, I think, on really on a stage, on a pedestal, is to bring change to that room, change to that container, in the
mm,
sense where these people are there to, it could be like these people over here are having a birthday party, and these people are having just drinks with their colleagues after work, and these people are uh, having an anniversary. And so you can kind of like, with the music, you can kind of target these different people to bring an elevated spirit to their night, and hopefully bring these like memories of like, oh wow, that was so fun. Remember when that guy sang that song, and like that was so much fun, and we sing along. It's like this idea of like, oh wait, yeah, it's not just singing music to people. You're hopefully bringing memories, good memories and good times
yeah.
to
It's
to
almost
to
like,
people.
yeah, you're like crafting everyone's experience at that
Yeah,
time and moment. And
yeah,
it's like, yeah, it's kind of, yeah, when you put it that way, it's like a bigger job than just playing music. It's kind of
yeah,
like, it's like you have a chance to really impact someone. And that's what's cool too. And they might not even, that's kind of the crazy thing about gigging is like they might not even come up to you and say that they had a good time, or they might not even tell you anything.
yep,
But you could be playing a song and it could totally make someone cry because that was their dad's song, or like that was
yeah.
like their anniversary song, or like
Hmm.
it's kind of crazy how impactful it is, I guess.
That's the power
Um,
of music. And so, like, in a sense, your job is to like, or your job is to just uplift the room. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, yeah, and then you got to be in a good mood to do that.
Exactly.
It's like
You can't
it's
be
tough to
like,
do that when you're
this is
hating
stupid.
life.
This is, yeah. If you're having that negative self-talk. So now when I'm thinking about like when I'm on stage and it's like that, people aren't listening, it seems like, or whatever, I'm like, no, I'm just blessed to be here. I I
Mm.
am, it doesn't matter. Like, and then, yeah, if nobody's listening, it's a chance for me to like focus on stuff that I need to work on. Even it's like it's a nice way to like practice, or try out, go out on a limb and try out something that you haven't done before, or experiment a little bit, and it makes it fun. It's always fun.
Yeah, I feel like we've all been there where like, we've played a lot of the same songs, we'll play a lot of the same gigs and stuff, and you get there and you're
Mhm.
like, oh man, like I really like how you said that, because you kind of do need to like excite yourself in a way, and maybe playing a new song or looping it differently, or trying a solo on this, or like maybe saying a certain line to the crowd or something kind of amps you up a little bit, scares you a little bit. So then you kind of get excited about
Mhm.
it again. And I feel like, yeah, like even just like you said, working on stuff, like essentially you're just getting paid. Like if no one's paying attention, or like no one cares, like we've all had gigs like that. It's like just working on a new song or working on something, maybe
Mhm.
work on looping better, or like something new, is like a great way to kind of change your mindset, I think.
Yeah. It's a great practice, honestly, when you're put in a situation where you feel like, "Oh, I'm not, what am I doing here?" But there's a reason. Yeah.
Mm, I like that. I like that. Uh, so so these were all like, so kind of going back to
Yeah. Did we go
that
off
was
topic?
a great tangent. That was awesome. Um, so you had a residency at the Onyx Bar and then at the Lily Bar, and that
Yeah.
was, you were playing those every single week. So how
Mhm.
was that? How was it playing like residencies? Because the
Yeah.
staff is going to be hearing you
Mhm.
every time. So what does that entail when you play residencies, you think?
So I think the residencies are good because well, from the money aspect, I know this is money musician. You know how much money you're you know how much money you're gonna rake in. So like, um, um, as you know, like I said, like a lot of the artists, uh, I think that's where I got lucky. A lot of the artists have to use agents, right? Where the agents take cuts. I came in right away with like pretty much no agent. I was able to make all that myself. But
So
like I
you would
said,
just maybe kind of explain that a little bit.
yeah, so a lot of the venues in Vegas, especially in Vegas, I notice have an agency, maybe a booking agent that says like, okay, this is my room. I'm going to book the music in here. It's just easier for the venue because a lot of times the venue is too busy doing the food and beverage stuff and they don't want extra work on top of that. So what happens is they can hire an agency to just have a list of artists that they have that they can just put in there because and it's really convenient for both because the agent really just takes a cut from the artist's um, side. So the venue will still pay you know the same amount. It's just that the artist will get slightly less, like 10, it's supposed to be 10 to 15%. But I was able to go in and because the venue wanted me directly, and I was like, I don't want to work with a they were willing to do the extra work, knowing that I would be there every Friday and Saturday, um, Onyx Bar or Lily Bar
So you
on
just
Tuesday.
go, you would talk like directly to management and then kind of divvy
Yeah,
out all the details, and then they would just pay
yeah,
you directly. And
yeah.
no, in the booker, there was no booker, so they wouldn't
There's
take a cut.
no yeah, there's no middleman essentially saying like, "Oh, this is I need to take a cut of that because I'm booking this." They just wanted me, "Okay, you just come every Tuesday and we'll just pay you directly." Or, you play every Friday and Saturday. And so
Mhm.
sometimes it's better that way to have the residency so you don't have to use a booking agent. A lot of times, having a booking agent will mean your week looks very, very different every week because they'll be like, "Oh, I need you over here. I need to put you in this place. I need to put you here," which is okay if that's what you like. It's just a different
Mhm.
flavor of like, do you want your week to change every week, or do you want a predictable like way to say, okay, I'm going to be here every week, and then you can tell your fans or whatever, hey, these are my shows every week, and yeah, you know where to find me, I
Yeah, I
guess.
think it gives you more leverage too, because
Hmm.
you can. I mean, you obviously you kind of you can negotiate the price more. When you're working with a booker, they could just be like, "Hey, I have this gig. This is what it pays."
Yeah.
There's not really any like leeway. But is it was that true, or is like you would just go in and kind of negotiate your own price, or like would they give you a
Yeah.
price?
Yeah, and then every year I'd give myself a pay raise also. So I'd go back sometimes to the venue and be like, okay, I need if you want to keep me, then it's going to be another $100, and So yeah, eventually got to the Lily Bar, still 4 hours for $700 a night. Um, and
Nice.
so and that's a really nice distinction. If you are growing and you're learning new songs and the venue is happy and it might be a year or two, but you can go back and say like, okay, we have a really good relationship. But this other venue is going, you can kind of utilize, whatever else you have to say like, hey, how about a pay raise? We have a good relationship, whatever. And then you can also do that with new gigs is like, at, you know, uh, you don't have to, it kind of depends on where you're at financially too. If you need the money and you're like, oh, I need more gigs, then that's a different story. It's like if you have this mentality like, oh, I'll just take what I can get and anything that pops up for like $50 or $100 you take, that's the level of musicianship that you are at. But there's just know that there are gigs out there that pay more, depending on it really just depends on the level of musician, or it's just depends on the level that you accept, I guess, in a certain sense. But the other side of that coin is going out and finding the right gigs. So like, um, mm, or having the system set up. So like, um, for instance, like playing these gigs at Lily Bar, I was exposed to a lot of people from all over the world, which helped me
Mhm.
get lots more like private gigs or even corporate gigs. So meaning I get asked to do like a corporate party or something like that, and they'd be like,
Mhm.
okay, it'd be like 3 hours also, and I'd be like, okay, that's $3,000, easy. Yeah. So there'd be, yeah. So at a certain point, like corporate gigs and stuff, $1,000 an hour is easy to ask for, and you just have to have you just have to ask. Yeah. You just have to say this is my price, and yeah, $1,000 an hour, easy.
And that's for it. And how did you like come up with that? Or did you kind of take what you were making at the lounge gigs and uh like how did you come up with that number?
Yeah, well, like I said, part of it is giving yourself a pay raise, knowing that you have increased your skill set every year. And so, whenever a corporate gig comes around, I would every year I increase my prices, right? So it's like this whole idea of well, okay, last year it was $600 an hour for corporate gigs. Now it's $700 an hour this year,
Mhm.
and then so on and so forth. And so, um, you can you can say, I yeah, and you just have to ask for it. They can say no, and
Right, right.
you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's the whole thing of it is like, I think really when you're working for yourself, there is no limitation on how much money you can make. It really is, there's no limit. When you're working for somebody else, they're going to tell you how much money you can make. And so
Mm,
that's the distinction here.
that's great. And I want to and I have to say too, people are probably wondering, it's like and like your act is great too. Like your act is amazing. And like not everyone could just go in and start demanding their own price. This is like you built up your act, you built up your song list. Um your whole act is like amazing. And so
Oh, thank you,
and
brother.
and you have to do that in order to, you know, start, demanding your own price and doing all of this other stuff that you've done.
Mm,
And you've always like pushed the envelope, I think. You're always learning new songs, you're always taking your act to the next level, you're always figuring out what new gear to use, and you're always
yeah,
kind of pushing the envelope, and I think that adds so much to you getting paid more. It's like you're worth more now.
yeah, yep.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. That's super cool, man. That's cool. It's cool to talk to you about all this stuff.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's good. I like talking about this stuff because I don't think a lot of people get to this is why this is important. I don't think a lot of people get to like hear the stories, in the sense of how it happens. How do you go from being this thing to the next thing? And it's like really I think what it takes is that you have to have like these habits that get you to be the next thing. It's like daily habits, really. That's all it takes.
Yeah, and I feel like yeah, and it's cool hearing your story because um man, there's so much that you've kind of like tested and tried and just kind of went and did, and it all kind of led to the next thing, and it led you to do what you're doing now, which is like this amazing thing all over the world, this amazing
Yeah.
musical act all over the world. And that's cool to think about. It's cool to think that like you just because it wasn't all just like sunshine and rainbows the whole time, you know?
Yeah, it
It was
wasn't like I got a call one day like, "Hey, you wanna play in these fancy hotels all over the world?" Yeah, it was just one thing led to the next thing, led to the next thing, but I had to grow. I had to kinda grow from one person to the next person to be able to fit in those
yeah.
roles.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you kinda had to yeah, I like, probably in your mind, you think back on, like, your past and you could see yourself leveling up in certain
Yeah.
times, really pushing yourself, and yeah, I feel like that's just so important. I feel like everyone's just gotta keep getting better and growing and learning new songs and listening to people like you, listening to your advice, watching what you're doing, and just keep getting better. And, so when you were at the Lily Bar residency,
Mm.
um, you were saying that, like, a lot of people would see you play and then book you
Yeah.
for other gigs?
Yeah, so that's a really cool thing about playing these, especially on the strip. You never know who's gonna be in the audience, and I think that being said, that's another reason why to have this, like, positive attitude and, like, just doing your best no matter what, even if it feels like nobody's listening, because you never know who's gonna be in the room, and
Mm.
so, um so really how I got these, overseas gigs, so right now behind me, I'm in Hong Kong, and I've been living here at the Rosewood Hotel, which is, um, I would say one of the fancier places here, it's yeah, I live in the hotel, um, but yeah, getting to this point, what was I saying? Where was I going with this?
Yeah, you ended up meeting someone saw you play
Oh, yeah,
earlier.
yeah, yeah. So how I started my first overseas gig, actually, I got a call from, Cameron Detman one day that,
Oh, okay, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, he was on your podcast. Yeah, but,
Yeah, for everyone who hasn't seen that podcast, Cam's our really good buddy. He also does
yeah,
looping and singing, and yeah, he's traveled a bunch too.
I think this is the important part about community, like, being in in this, like in your city, just, like, knowing other musicians and stuff like that, you can bounce ideas off each other. So Cameron got, a gig. He was offered a gig at the Ritz-Carlton in Singapore, and so this thing was like he was performing in Singapore, and I was watching his videos and stuff like that. I was like, in my mind, I was like, "Oh, that'd be so cool if I could do something like that. Like, that sounds like a dream." And so, he it was the weirdest thing because, like, literally a week after thinking that, he called me up from Singapore, was like, "Hey, the hotel is looking for somebody else to come. So the thing in Singapore is they're very strict about their, working visas, so he could only
Mhm.
work in Singapore for 6 months, exactly 6 months, and then he had to leave. And the hotel was like, "Let's give another artist a shot." So, yeah, so I was like, "Okay, so yeah, I'll do it." So yeah, Singapore, this was 2018 by this time, so, like, um
Mm.
and then, I don't know, this is serendipity. I think this is just, like, when you know things are kind of shifting, things will just start pushing you more and more in that direction, meaning, I would say maybe a month before I was supposed to leave to Singapore, I was playing, one of my last shows at the Lily Bar on a Tuesday again, and at the end of the night, I looked at my tip jar, along with all the money. There was a business card, and it was from the general manager of the Park Hyatt, in Beijing, and it was like and he wrote on the back, he was like, "Hey, I really liked your show tonight. Email me if you wanna perform in China." And so,
That's so
yeah,
cool.
it was so crazy. So, like, I emailed him the next day, and I was like, "Hey, I'm already contracted to play in Singapore, but how about we, plan for me to come to China after that?" He was like, "That's perfect. That's great." So, yeah, Yeah, so that's what happened. I went to Singapore. I remember it was like September of 2018.
Yeah.
Performed there for 6 months, exactly 6 months, and then I already had, Beijing in the it was already happening, like, all everything was just already rolling without even me having to do anything, really. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
And how that's so cool. That's so cool how
Mhm.
it all kind of just plays out. And you're putting it out there in the universe. So it's like,
Yeah, yeah.
it's just happening. And how was it? How is it playing those residencies in Singapore and China?
Yeah, it's definitely, some of it's culture shock, right? Like, you're just like, um I always ask for requests at my shows, and so, like, in Singapore, they'd be like, "Hey, play this can you play this Chinese song?" I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I don't I don't know." But it made me realize, like, in Vegas, I was playing, like, "Don't Stop Believe," every single night, and, like, nobody wanted
Yeah.
that in Singapore. They're like, "Oh, I want this, like, love song," or, "I want this" Savage Garden song. So there was just like a very different um, set of like songs. It was actually really really cool because it got me kind of out of that comfort zone again of playing knowing who my audience was to unknowing and then going like, okay, I got to work at this a little bit more. And then
Mm,
Beijing was even more difficult, meaning, I mean, there was hard in Singapore, everybody speaks English pretty well, but in Beijing, not very many English speakers. So like they do recognize English songs, and there's a lot of expats that will go to the hotel that I was working at, but it was a lot more difficult, I would say. But that's a challenge, if you take things and go like, "Oh, this sucks. I can't do it. It's terrible." Or go like, "Okay, this is a challenge, but if I just break it down into little pieces, I can really do it." So, yeah, I was in Beijing for 9 months until, um, the January 2020, the pandemic, when COVID happened. So it was COVID kind of, was a surprise, I think, for everyone. But, I was already planning on coming back to Vegas just for, like, a one-week vacation for Chinese
mhm.
New Year, which was at the end of, January, and, like, I'd say a few days before my flight back to Vegas was the talks of, like, all the news was, like, Wuhan shut down, nobody can leave, go in or out of Wuhan. That was a few days before I
Dang.
my flight. And then so as soon as I landed in
Oh
in
my
America, all the flights were canceled back to China. So, like,
oh
yeah,
my gosh.
yeah, yeah, so I was kinda stuck which was a blessing, I think, in disguise. I don't think I would have liked to be stuck in China, during the pandemic, so it was actually nice to be back in America for a bit, and, yeah, we got to hang out actually a bit, yeah.
Yeah. Dude, that's so crazy how it just lined up that way.
Yeah.
That's so insane. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I was only supposed to be back 1 week, and I was in America for 2.5 years.
and you were playing like every single night in the residencies, weren't you?
Yeah, so no, it's like 5 nights a week. Yeah.
Okay, so just Monday to Friday? Or how did they do it?
Yeah, it's like usually Tuesday through no, what is it? Well, here, yeah, so here it's, Tuesday through Saturday, so I have Sundays and Mondays off. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, it's usually 5 days, um, depending. Yeah, and the pay structure is different. So, like, yeah, we can get into I guess the residencies are definitely different pay-wise. So for instance, um, I don't pay rent. So I live in a five-star hotel, right? So, there's no rent, and then I also all my meals are paid for. So when you take out the extent of like, okay, what do I need to live on? So you can take out the two biggest costs of your life, pretty
Wow.
much, food and so like, yeah, I mean, you're eating fancy food, but it does get old sometimes. So I do eat, sometimes go out and eat, especially on my days off. I'll go out and explore a little bit. But
Mm.
for the most part, if you wanted to, you wouldn't have to spend any money on eating. Yeah. So it's actually
That's
really,
crazy.
really interesting.
Yeah.
It's cool, right?
That's a huge expense. Yeah.
Yeah, so cutting out all this, so here in Hong Kong, and then I make, $7,000 a month, which might not seem like a lot in the sense, but when you cut out when you're thinking about the costs of living costs, and then, I also don't have to pay for a car payment. I literally don't have any, my monthly expenses come down to Netflix. um, I don't I don't have a phone bill here, so no phone. Um, I yeah, we can get into that later, but I have, just an app that I use for like data, but I'm mostly in the hotel most of the time, so I can just use the Wi-Fi. Um, and
Wow.
then, yeah, I mean, it comes down to only a few $100 of like my actual expenses. Yeah.
That's super cool. Yeah, that's a sweet
So
deal.
yeah, yeah. So when you think about like how you live, if you could, if you go like, oh wait, if my basic needs are met, what more do I really need? And then
Mhm.
if you love what you do anyways, I honestly, I feel like um I live like a halfway retired lifestyle, honestly, because
Mm.
really I only work 3 hours a day, literally 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock. Um, I live in a five-star hotel, and I all my meals are paid for. So I don't know what
Yeah.
else. What else can you ask for? I don't know. You know.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. That's like, yeah, what would you say that's your what would you say your mission is?
Oh yeah, yeah, that's a good question. So, as you know, I've been doing a lot of reading, and so over the years, and I know you do. I know you read a lot too. So we're kind of on the same page. Something that helped me out a lot was this book by Jay Shetty called "Think Like a Monk."
Yeah, great
Yeah,
book.
"Think Like a
Yeah.
Monk," and uh, there's kind of like these like thought provoking questions at every chapter, and so like there's one chapter, it was like, okay, think of your dharma. Your dharma is like what what you feel like your purpose on earth is, what people will pay you to do, what you're automatically good at, what all this stuff. So I'm like, well, I know I'm put on earth to play music for people. My passion is being on stage and singing for people, or bringing that element of like uplifting a room. And then so
Mhm.
I my mission statement now, my purpose now I've written down is to bring joy to others through music. Um, and
Mm.
so that that simple line I can repeat to myself, even when I'm on stage. I can go like, my purpose here is just to bring joy to others through music. And so if I'm fulfilling that um, mission, then I'm doing everything I need to do to fulfill myself.
Mm. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. That's such a good having a mission, taking time to write a mission statement
Mm.
for the reason why you're doing things, I think is such a big thing. And it seems so like simple and kind of easy to brush off, but I think that once you do it and you find one that really resonates with you and it's just like such a good reminder because
Yeah.
I think we all need that reminder of like what you're really focused on and
Mhm.
what it's all about. What yeah.
Yeah, but then it can also help you in other aspects of your life too. So say, for instance, say like your friends ask you like, "Oh, you want to go skiing this weekend?" And I can remind myself of my mission statement. I'm like, well, does that help me in the sense of like, I know sometimes it can. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that because it's not fun, but there's like people ask me all the time because I perform at this other hotel in Japan, in Niseko, which is a really big like skiing, snowboarding destination.
Mm.
And I don't snowboard or ski. It's like, well, I could spend my time doing that, or I could spend more time learning new songs or practicing or writing or learning or doing more of this stuff instead of that. So it's just it helps me with my choices on a lot of stuff. Yeah, also.
Yeah, it kind of helps you figure out who you're going to hang out with and
Yeah.
who's helping you with your mission or who's not. Kind of.
Yeah, and you kinda realize that, like, it's like, "Oh, shit, like, is this gonna help me in the long run, or is this just like a tangent?" And it's okay, like, I like doing stuff that's, like, for me, it's like traveling and food and, like, doing stuff like that, and, but that's I don't know, that's another part of, like, my why I'm traveling like this, so I can go explore and see new sights and try new things, yeah. I think that's
Yeah,
important for me.
and just reach new people with your music as well.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
I'm sure you've
Mhm,
seen, like you said, like the audiences are just different in different countries, and they request different songs, and they're gonna respond to it in a different way. Some might like it way more, in another
yep,
country. Who knows?
mhm.
What is it? What's it like traveling with all your gear to these places?
Yeah, yeah, so, when I got the call to go to Singapore, and then I knew I was going to Beijing afterwards,
Yeah.
I decided, "You know what? This seems like a new chapter of my life." So I sold my car, I sold everything, I sold all my clothes, that I didn't need, I packed all my gear into 1 suitcase, and then the clothes in another suitcase, and then I had a backpack with my laptop and just a few other things, and then a guitar. So those 4 items, 2 suitcases, um, a backpack, and a guitar was everything I owned, well, still own at pretty much to this day. That's everything I
Really?
own.
So kind of the
Everything I own yeah, can fit in 2 suitcases, a backpack, and a guitar case.
kind of the minimalist approach, huh?
Yeah, I think it helps with focus too because then it's I think it's easy to go down the rabbit hole of, like, going on Amazon and going like, "Oh, I need to get this new thing," or whatever. But now it, like, takes me a while to buy anything. I do
Mm.
tons of because 'cause I'm like, "Okay, this new item needs to replace." For instance, I'm thinking about getting a new microphone actually for, like, making videos and stuff like that, but I'm like, "Okay,
Mhm.
can this also replace my can this also be used for my, like, live performances?" So I'm, like, thinking in ways
Mm.
like, "Okay, can it satisfy multiple use cases?" And it goes for clothes too, like, so even, like, a shirt like this, um, I can just put my suit coat over it and, like, use it to perform in also. But it's also just a casual shirt I can go out and just, go out in an everyday situation and wear it also. And so everything that I own has to have, like, multiple use cases. Can't just be used for one purpose. Yeah, if that
That's
makes
really
sense.
cool. And you don't have to like, and that way you're not it's kind of less to worry about. You don't have to
Totally.
like, yeah, is that just like did that kind of just clear your mind, like getting rid of a lot of your stuff?
Oh my god, yeah, it's amazing. So, like, okay, so back in New Mexico, I bought a house. I still own this house, but it has renters now. But when I first moved in, it was like I gotta buy a couch, I gotta buy a TV, I gotta buy a kitchen table, I gotta buy all this stuff. And so, but then when I moved to Austin, just like 2 years later, I tried to take some of that stuff with me. The couch totally fell. I mean, I only lived there 9 months, and I was like, tried to sell it, but what it's just a pain in the neck. And um, I realized um, it would have been easier, honestly, for me to get a storage unit um,
Mm.
in Vegas. before I moved to Singapore. But I was like, "You know what? This is a great opportunity for me to start over or see how far I can go. What happens after Beijing?" You know? So, I don't know. Let's just see how far I can take this, and it's just I think sometimes it's good to think about, like, just resetting. Just do something drastic and start over, you know? Get rid of everything. You don't need all that, and see what you can live on bare minimum and go like, "You know what? Maybe I didn't need all that stuff." It's easy to get in that cycle of like, "Oh, I need something new. I need something new."
Hmm.
Yeah.
Just being a
Mhm.
consumer and yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of like clearing off your desk, kind of clears the mind a little bit,
Mhm.
less clutter. And yeah, I totally see that. And oh yeah, you're going to talk about traveling with your gear.
Yeah, well, so, um, yeah, the gear there's also a weight limit, so when you fly so I had to make sure everything in both cases is, what is it? Like, I don't remember how many kilos, but it has to be under 50 pounds. Yeah, so,
Mm.
so my yeah, pretty much both of my suitcases are like right at the max of 50 pounds. So I'm still trying to get rid of some weight. So yeah, there's things I'm still trying to get rid of and thinking about how I can utilize other things that will replace that. My pedal board is heavy. Yeah, still trying to figure out how to get that weight down. But yeah, it's been fine for now. Yeah.
And you had to buy like all the hard cases and everything for them.
Yeah, so my pedal board and violin go into the same Pelican case. I have a flight case, Pelican case, Pelican Air case that works really well for handling those things. And I had some custom foam built for my violin, so it would fit exactly in there,
Mm.
nice and tight, so wouldn't slide around. Um, yeah, and then I also for my clothes and stuff, I have these packing cubes, so I can pack everything in really tightly in packing cubes, and that works really well too.
And your guitar too. You have that one guitar.
Yeah. So over time, I've had a Taylor guitar for many years that I played, but after flying so many flights and stuff like that, there's just cracks would appear on the guitar, and like after only like a year and a half of like traveling. So during the pandemic, I found this company called Klaus guitars. They're carbon fiber travel guitars, and so the neck comes off. You can take off the neck with 4 screws and carry it on. So carbon fiber is way lighter and it's way more durable. And so I've had this guitar
Mm.
now for 4 years, 3 or 4 years now. It's been super good, yeah, for traveling. So I'd say it's more of a travel guitar. It's a slightly smaller than a actual guitar, but the weight it's weighs much lighter and it's way more durable um, than a wood guitar. And so that's just there's some I still love the tone of a wood guitar. I prefer that, but the convenience is much more important to me, and not worrying about having to replace my guitar every so often just because of the construction. And yeah, my this
Yeah,
guitar, I put it like a $300 pickup system in it, so it sounds really good. So doesn't matter.
nice. That's cool. Yeah, that's cool to hear. Yeah, because the weather messes it up. The pressure on the
Temperature,
airplane,
pressure, humidity.
so much
That's what
stuff.
I mean, when you're dealing with wood, it's just like this whole you have to like baby it. And I just like for me, my things need to keep up with me, not me thinking of like, oh, I need to take care of my baby and like baby it. It needs to
Right.
yeah, for me, an instrument's a tool. It needs to keep up with my, lifestyle.
Right. And so you kind of bounce around like uh couple different residencies. You in Singapore, Hong
Singa
Kong,
Yeah,
and then
Beijing, Japan, Cambodia. and I've done a bunch of I've only worked for one cruise line. It's Virgin Voyages. They messaged me randomly. So every year I've done a 1 month cruise with them. Yeah, somewhere in the Mediterranean, or I've crossed from um, Dubai to Sydney in a month, and I've also done South Africa to Athens. Yeah.
That's super cool. How's it different on a cruise ship?
It's actually
Mm,
you work a lot less. I will only work two 45-minute sets a day, and it's just I think of it more like a vacation. Like I don't really have to work that hard to the point where like I want to play more, so I start jamming with other musicians. So it's actually really fun. You can really you meet a lot of cool people, especially other musicians from all over the world. And then yeah, you start making fans from all over the world too. So it's like it's a really fun thing. A lot of people think like cruise lines, you don't get paid a lot, you have to live under the belly, whatever. So I'm with what they consider a guest artist. So I'm only on the ship for 1 month,
mm.
and I get a regular guest cabin. So I get like a balcony and like whatever. I can eat at all the restaurants, whatever. And the pay is like $8,000 a month. So yeah, so I
Hey, that's
can't
good.
complain. Yeah.
And you get to go to the different places, right? Like you get to
Yeah,
get
yeah,
off.
and get off the ship. Yeah, I mean, from Virgin Voyages, I've been yeah so many places. And not only that, like they pay for all your flights and your gear costs too. So anywhere
Wow.
to and from. So like for instance, they flew me from where was I before? Oh, I was in Perth. I also did a residency in Perth, Australia. So they flew me from Perth. I flew all the way to South Africa. That yeah, they pay for all that flights. And then when I landed in Athens, I was like, I want to stay in Athens for a month. So they're like, okay. So I just booked my flight. I just had it planned, so I they booked my flight from Athens to Hong Kong like a month
Wow.
later. They paid for all that. Yeah, I didn't have to pay any of
That's
that. So
that's pretty
that's
awesome.
yeah, so it's like you get free travel. It's like getting paid to travel, and all you have to do is just play music. This is why it's a blessing. Like you just if you love to travel, this is the best way to do it. Is you get to kind of um, experience a place for a few months instead of just you can do the regular touristy thing where you like go to a place for like a week. You know what I mean? And like experience it that way, just hit all the touristy things. But to really get the vibe of the city and the culture or whatever, it's better to stay longer. And so why not stay in a five-star hotel and then all you have to do in return is perform 3 hours a day, 5 days a
Dude,
week.
that sounds awesome. Yeah. That's cool to hear about because a lot of the I've talked to a few other people about cruise ships and stuff, but like that's a really cool insight because the guest artist is a different thing than being uh on the
Yeah.
cruise ship.
Yeah, yeah. So it's actually a different thing. They do have like ship musicians that are there for like 6 months and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that's a different thing that I do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool to hear that insight. And so dang, dude, you've done a lot of really cool stuff, man. You
Yeah.
literally traveled the whole world playing music, and it's cool to hear your story. What's like your daily routine now?
Yeah, so I
Yeah,
still yeah, it becomes a lot of it just comes wrapped around my that list that I showed you on my that Streaks app, right? So it's like I wake up probably anywhere from not 8:30 to 9:30. It just depends on the night. Sometimes I set my alarm, sometimes I don't. It just depends on the day. So, but I get up. So let's just say 9 o'clock. I'll get up. I'll do meditation. Try to do like maybe a 15, 20 minute like yoga routine just to kind of get my body woken up. and then I'll go downstairs and do the breakfast buffet at the hotel.
Solid.
Big spread. Yeah, it's like this whole thing, so you can like choose like if you want um, eggs or you want noodles or I don't know, there's all this stuff, and then there's a whole spread of yeah, whatever. So that's nice. And then I'll come back up. I'll do some reading. Um, uh,
What are
I'll
you
do
reading
some
right
reading.
now?
Right now, I'm reading Richer, Wiser, Happier.
Hmm.
Um, it's actually it's this author is he interviewed all these famous investors. So
Hmm.
over the course of the years. But the book I read before that, which is actually really interesting, was "Make Your Own Rules" by Andrew Huang. He's a really big YouTuber, and
Hmm.
so he talks about how his story, and it's actually really interesting if you want to hear a story about like a successful kind of like entrepreneurial musician YouTuber. He has a really cool story. So if you don't know, yeah, Andrew Huang is like this YouTuber who makes like really quirky videos about music production mostly, but just music in general. So check him out
Huh.
on YouTube. Yeah,
Nice.
really
Yeah, I'll
cool.
check it out.
Yeah, but yeah, this book is I don't tend to keep on one subject. It's good I think to like diversify the learning. So right now it's about investing. Yeah. So
Nice. So
uh,
what do you after that? You read every day, and then what do
yeah.
you got?
Yeah, so sometimes I go to the gym, sometimes I'll go exploring, sometimes I'll just go out and take my camera and go like, "Oh, I wanna go here," and just see some stuff. But then I do spend some time in during the day, also, I'm putting some time in to, like, write my own music. I've been going on Ableton. Ableton Live is what I use for my music production, and, yeah, I haven't really put anything out lately, but I've been working on some more like meditative songs and stuff like that. So, like my music production is kind of in a way opposite from my live performance stuff. Like, I'm not trying to create the same music. It's a way for me to stay creative, but outside of. It's more interesting for me to stay outside of my my performance side, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
From on the music production side. So I've been making like meditative stuff and like yeah, you'll see it'll come out a bit later.
Yeah.
And then let's see, there's yeah, I spent some time because I read Andrew Huang's book. I kind of challenged myself to do a lot more posting. I don't know if you noticed, I've been posting a lot more on Instagram
Yeah.
every day. So that uh, the thing about reading is it's supposed to inspire you to change. And so I'm like, I used to be like, I don't want to. I only feel like posting when I feel like posting. But I realize now it's like if you get in the practice of posting every single day, you get better at like, oh, what idea can I do today, or what you know. And so hopefully, like it's just another practice of being creative, I guess. And so I'm trying to lean into the idea of like, okay, I could just try to practice just posting and being creative on a daily basis. So I try
Hmm.
to do that every day now. And then yeah, there's dinner. And I do a little bit of I try to practice every day. There's new songs I'm always learning. So even now, like look at yeah, see this is like new list of songs. The things that are checked out are things I've already learned. Yeah, there's a bunch of them. I usually do it digitally, but I have a
Nice.
desk now, so yeah. So 30 minutes to an hour. It also becomes my vocal warm up.
Hmm.
So it's like it's a nice way for me to start warming up my vocals anyways. So like that'll be like 30 minutes an hour before I have to perform, and then I go to the bar, which is just on the 5th floor in the same hotel. So, like, I literally just walk downstairs or take the elevator down. It takes 2 minutes, 3 minutes to get to the bar from my room, and then,
Is your
yeah, so
gear already set up down there?
yeah. So that's another difference. I save so much time by not having to drive to the Strip, unloading all my gear, lugging it all the way to the venue, and then setting
Mm.
it up, which takes an hour, So I save an hour at least a
And
day,
tearing
2 hours,
down.
and tearing down and
Yeah.
driving back home. So yeah, but there's things, yeah, I don't have to carry around a sound system, a car, I don't have, all that stuff. It's just like out of mind. I'm at peace with it. I don't need to do that right now. So
That's
it's nice
sweet, dude.
not having to do that. Yeah. Really
Dang.
interesting, right?
That's a cool, yeah, that's a cool
So
routine, man.
I have a lot more time. So then I perform from 8 to 11. Sometimes I play longer. Say it's busy. This is another one of my ethos is like I don't base my performance based on time. If like for some reason it's a really busy night, it could be a Tuesday and it could be really busy and there's like I'm getting more requests or people are really into it. I'll play 15, 20, 30, an hour longer. Yeah. Just depends on the
Just to
night.
keep it going. Yeah.
The idea is not about, again, it goes back to that mindset or my mission statement. Bring joy to others through music, right? It's not
Mhm.
stop exactly at 11 o'clock because that's what you're contracted to do. And I think going that extra mile or going that extra doing all these little things that um, bring joy to others, that it just will bring that extra. I don't know. The it just comes back to you, honestly, the more you give. That's how I think of
Yep.
it. Uh-huh. And,
Yep.
you can see it because, like, the hotel appreciates that. They're like, "Oh, that's so nice," and, it's not expected. Do the things that aren't expected, but that it'll come back in multitudes, I think, in a lot of ways.
Yep. You give out and then you get it back.
Mhm.
That's so good, yeah. And so, dude, that's cool, man. You got a
Yeah.
cool life, man.
Yeah, yeah. So then I come depending on the night, like, I get back to my room around midnight, and then I have my own nighttime routine, shower, brush my teeth, get ready for bed, write in my journal, finish up my journal. I kind of write in my journal throughout the day. But yeah, finishing out the journal and then yeah, go to bed. So it's like maybe by 1 o'clock I'm sleeping, 1 or 2, depending. Sometimes I realize sometimes when I perform, it's like there's just all this energy built up. So it's like hard for me to sleep right away. I don't know if you feel that too. If you play
Yeah,
late at
you have to
night.
wind down. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
tough to wind
like
down
just still winding
sometimes.
down. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like it's almost like you feel like partying still after some of the
Yeah,
gigs, like,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, so there are nights where, like, I've made friends here now, like, one of the saxophonist that plays in the band downstairs. There's actually a few venues here. We'll go out and or some other friends will go out and we'll, um, yeah, find a bar or something and get a drink or something like that. But that only happens, like, once a week, so it's
Yeah.
actually a nice balance. So, doing that every night, I don't think is healthy, but it's a nice
Right.
way to build community and camaraderie, I guess, if every now and then is good. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. That's good advice. Um, dude, cool, man. I mean, that was really cool hearing your story.
Mm.
Where can people find you?
Yes. I use my Instagram the most. It's just, my handle is Daniel Park Music, all one word. You can also go to my website if you want a more comprehensive list of all my links, Spotify, Apple Music, whatever. That's just Daniel Park, www.danielparkmusic.com. Very easy, very um, thorough. Yeah, and I do have a bunch of YouTube videos of my stuff, and I'm working on thinking about um, updating that more. This is also just youtube.com/Daniel Park Music.
Well, thanks for doing this.
Yeah, of course, of course. No, I love it. I love it. it is really cool. So no, thank you.
Cool, man. Right on, dude. Well, I'll catch you soon.